Honest Abe here from Smokin' Cigars. It is that time of year again, the Great Smoke 2023 Mardi Gras Madness. If you're wondering why everybody last year was calling it the best cigar event in the country, it was evident the day tickets went on sale. VIP tickets sold out in one day. That's right, they are all gone. Don't message us, don't PM us. I'm sorry, there's nothing we could do, but there are still plenty of general admission tickets and virtual tickets. Once again, we'll be offering this event virtually as well as live, so for those of you who can't make it down, you'll be able to enjoy the festivities from the comfort of your own home. Michael Herklotz, Kim Keeney, and Paul DeGracco will be returning to be your co-hosts for your virtual experience. Whether you're coming down live or we're going to be enjoying the event from the comfort of your own home, your ticket price includes this epic package. It's one of our greatest Great Smoke packages in the history of this event. Over $400 worth of product and great swag for the low cost of $165. If you're coming down live, you'll get your package the day of the event. If you order your virtual ticket, they'll start shipping weeks prior to the event in early March. For those of you coming down, we have 4 full epic days of fun. We start off with Drew Estate and Jonathan Drew. Thursday night, our headquarters here in Boynton Beach. Friday night, 2 events. Steve Saka here at headquarters, and Evan Darnell once again returns to host our pre-event dinner with the Red Meat Lovers Club. Going off the top this year. I've seen the menu. It'll be up on the site soon. Incredible dinner. And our feature host this year, Michael Herklotz of Ferio Tego Cigars, who's made a very special cigar, especially for those attending the pre-event dinner. Saturday morning, we are starting early with the first ever tailgate party being hosted by the distinguished Druffius and Eric Espinosa. There'll be a very special cigar made exclusively for that event for the first 100 attendees who go to the tailgate party. And of course, the main event will be Saturday afternoon. And then that night, after the main event, you can head back to our headquarters here. We'll have the man himself, Boofy Matt Booth, Room 101 Cigars, capping it all off with a beautiful Sunday brunch once again before everybody goes home from what we hope will be another historically, epically fun weekend. Do not hesitate. Tickets are selling this year faster than ever. Go to www.thegreatsmoke.com and get your live general admission ticket, your virtual ticket if you're going to enjoy from home, and tickets for either the dinner or the brunch. Epic time. We can't wait to see you all there. The Great Smoke 2023. Mardi Gras Madness.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another live episode. I cannot believe that I have been doing this now for the start of my 3rd year, and this show just keeps getting better and better, in my opinion, with better guests, including the one that we're going to have tonight. But before we bring on the guest of honor, yes, Kevin, I was a couple of seconds late. I appreciate you pointing that out, bud. But let's go ahead and give a shout out to all the great sponsors that really, really make this show absolutely possible, starting with Abe DeBabna and crew over at Smokin' Cigars. Abe was an absolutely integral part of kicking off this show, helped me in the very beginning, and has now been a very big part of helping me keep this show going. Thank you so much. We have BAMF Cigars, ROCF Cigars, Christoph Cigars. We've got New Air Humidors, Sagrado Cigars, McAuliffe, as well as I will be drinking tonight the Axe and Oak port cask aged bourbon that they have, or whiskey that they have. So I am very, very much set, ripping and roaring to go. So let's see here. Rookie move, not a 3rd-year veteran. Thank you, Kevin. Yes, I always keeping me honest, buddy. I could always count on you. But with enough of me talking, nobody really came to come and listen to me talk. Let's go ahead and bring in the man of the hour, the guy of the night, Hector Alfonso Sr., master blender for Espinosa Cigars. How you doing, Hector?
Hey, good to be here, Ryan. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, I'm going to hand the show off to you here for the first couple of minutes. Introduce yourself just in case anybody watching that doesn't actually know who you are. I doubt it, but we'll find
Uh,
out. So I'll give you the floor. Introduce yourself. Tell everybody what you do for Espinosa, and we'll go from there.
all right. Well, I'm Hector Alfonso. I've been with Espinosa Cigars now for in about 2 weeks. It'll be 11 years that the company was formed. Uh, Probably, I would say I'm his first, second employee. His son and I and him. That's how we started the company back in 2012. I I started with him not knowing what we were going to do. I mean, it's an empty warehouse. We had no cigars, and he was uh, coming off the breakup of EO Brands, and he didn't know what direction he wanted to go in. But here we were, and over the years, I've kind of become, his operations guy, blended cigars for him, and any kind of problem that he has, any kind of fire that he has, I'm there to help put him out. That's it. It's not. I wish I had. It's nothing sexy, but that's what it is.
Well, you had told me before we started the show that you had a really interesting, fun backstory on how you kind of got into this. So let's just kind of start there. How did you get into the cigar world? What's your pedigree, your history with it, and how'd you become a master blender?
Well, all right. I'll start with the first question. Listen, I've always been a cigar smoker. I Before I started working for Eric, I worked for the Miami-Dade Police Department for 32 years. I was a criminal analyst for them. It was greatest time of my life. I enjoyed that. Uh, and early in my career, I saw that there are a lot of cigar smokers in the police department. So back in 1994, I helped put together a smoking event to help one of the PBA charities, and it kind of took off from there. I was kind of synonymous whenever you thought of me or saw me, or if you saw us in the office or saw us working out doing whatever we were doing. I always had cigars with me, and as unfortunately in 2008 and 9, when the economy went bad, our mayor balanced the budget of the county on his employees' backs. So I lost a substantial amount of money in salary, and I needed something to do. I mean, you have to come up with something. You have to come up with that hole that all of a sudden you have in your salary. And I was a local at a cigar shop, and the guy said, "Listen, why don't you just come work here on the weekends?" And I did, and I worked there on the weekends for 3 years. And in those 3 years, I found I met Eric, and it wasn't because he was a cigar at the time. He was doing his own line. He was also a rep for Rocky and True. But I noticed that him and I had a lot of the same friends on our Facebook, and they weren't cigar people. They were people that I went to junior high with, people that I went to high school. So when we talked, we after talking for a minute, we realized that we lived like a mile and a half from each other and didn't know each other. We're a year different. I'm a year older than he is. He's a class of '85. I was class of '84. But we went to opposite high schools, but a lot of our friends went to the same feeder schools. So it was just one of those things. We kind of hit it off. We're completely different guys. We're not buddies. We weren't boys, or
Brothers,
we
you were
weren't brothers.
brothers.
We've become over these 10 years we have, but we weren't. He had his circle. I was in law enforcement. We're kind of tightly wound. We're a completely different kind of animal. And then one day, and this is a pretty funny story. I get a call from him. It was February. I remember it was February 7th. And he says, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm leaving the station." He goes, "Why don't you meet me at the Home Depot off of Okeechobee Road, which is a major thoroughfare here in Hialeah?" I said, "Okay, I'll meet you there." So I pull up. I don't see him. I call him on the phone. I said, "Hey, I'm here. Where are you at?" He goes, "All right, now I want you to leave there, make a right, and go down the block about half a mile, and there's some warehouses on the right hand side." And I said, "Yeah, okay." Now I saw Goodfellas. I remember how they whacked Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, and I've not fallen for that bullshit. So I followed his instructions, but when I pulled up into the parking lot of this empty warehouse, I parked 3 or 4 cars away. So when I got out of the car, he could see that his boy wasn't playing. His boy was strapped. So if there was gonna be any funny business, we were gonna take care of it. But no, I mean, he laughs and he doesn't even remember it. But I mean, for me, it's a really funny moment. So as we're standing there, I said, "What's up?" And he goes, "No, I just wanted to tell you this is the future home of Espinosa Cigars." So obviously, I'm like, "Well, bro, Mazel Tov, congratulations! I'm happy for you. Whatever you come out with, I'll be at the shop. I'll help push it." And he goes, "No, no, I want you to come work for me." I said, "Well, what do you want me to do? Listen, I need a real serious guy. The foundation of this place has to be serious. He's going to bring his son along." He did one of the few things a parent does. He asked his kid to leave school to come help him start a business, and he says, "I want you to come along." And I said, "Well, what the hell do you want me to do?" And he says, "Listen, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out." And it's 11 years later. We're still figuring it out. It seems sometimes we're still figuring it out, but we've been very successful. We're very blessed. Everywhere and all the notoriety and accolades that we've gained, over these 11 years, the foundation is firmly upon his shoulders, because we were nothing. I mean, we started with 800 square feet of warehouse space and not a single cigar. And, here we are, a couple of Cigar of the Year awards here, some falling on Cigar Aficionados lists 4 or 5 times. I mean, for a small boutique company, we've really come a long way. So it's a good moment,
Absolutely. And so I want to kind of touch a little bit. You had mentioned boutique, and from somebody like you, I'm always curious. There's no hard and fast rule on what the definition of boutique is, but
there
isn't your definition.
Listen, we listen, and this is not sour. This is not me crying over sour milk or anything like that. The definitions, I think, vary from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
When you're comparing it, especially now at the end of the year, where it's end of the year time, where now is it's like award season for the Oscars, the Emmys, all this, all these awards come out from all these different
top 20 lists.
So all these top 20 lists from very respected cigar media outlets, and some not so well respected, and some that are fly by night. But some there, we won for large company. We're not a large company, but when he explains why he considers us a large company, I get it. I see where he's coming from. We won for a couple of years. We won Small Factory of the Year with Lizona. And then one year they gave it to a factory that does, 8 million cigars a year. I don't think that's a small factory. I think a boutique factory, in my opinion, what I classify as boutique, is a company that makes a couple of 3 million cigars a year, and still small. I mean, it's a lot of cigars, but it's still small. And then, you have micro boutiques and mini boutiques, and you have all of these different categories you can put them in. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I'm going to funnel some inner socket here. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. The important thing is that whether you're small or you're large or you're medium size, that you're putting out the best cigars you can. You're reaching out, you're engaging with your customers and your consumers, and you have a good handle on social media, because that is the way we built our company.
Sure.
And it's the way many of these other manufacturers have built their company. Listen, somebody told me Drew Estate was boutique. How do you argue? They were at one time boutique. They were the grandfather of boutique brands. 2 guys with a kiosk at the World Trade Center. How much more boutique can you get? Now they're a monstrosity. They're a huge, and congratulations to them and all of my friends that work there, and we all want to get there. We all want to get there. So
do you think a company like Drew Estate can have a boutique line, or because they're as big as they are?
I don't know if boutique has to do with line, and I think when it comes to boutique, I think it really has a feel, because listen, they're enormous, but they still have that when you talk about Ligas, the guys who are Liga fanatics and Liga lovers. They talk with this sincerity and this love for, and you would think that they're only making 200,000 cigars a year. I mean, when they make about that in one day. I mean, listen, it's great for the industry. All of these, any company that puts a positive product out there, puts a positive spin on things, and embraces, is good for the industry, and that's what we need. We need more of that.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And just to kind of throw up Kevin's question here, because this is another question, and I do personally consider you a master blender. You've been doing it now 11 years. You've come out with some of my personal favorites, including the name you just helped me learn today, the Azulejo from La Raja. I think this is the best La Raja, but then again, I am a high horsepower cigar smoker.
I mean, listen, there are guys who will fight you. There are guys who will fight you.
They'll
tell you the Oscuro is a little more potent, a little more spicy. It's got a little more pep. I was on Kevin's show. I think sometime early last year, and I think he asked me this as well. And I get asked this a lot. I'm uncomfortable using the term master blend, and I'll tell you why. Because regardless of what you might think, I mean, you're meeting me for the first time. I when it comes to this stuff, I'm still very humble in what we've achieved as a company, what personal accolades I've gotten, and what accolades the company has when it comes to the cigar industry.
Hector, I think your internet's. Yep, I think your internet's dying out a little bit. We could still hear you. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Okay. Yep.
All right. Sorry about that. There are guys. Okay. There are guys who've been in this industry 30 or 40, 50 years, and have never had the success, or the luck, or the opportunity to be where we are, as a company that's been around only 11 years. So I'm a little humbled by that. I don't like using that term, master blender. I mean, if when people call me that, I kind of listen. Master blender kind of it conjures up some guy in a laboratory with his books. I've always considered myself kind of the Rachel Ray of cigar blending. Not super sexy, but a little dirty in the background. I can make a good sandwich. That's the way I've always kind of looked at myself.
So
there are a lot of guys who feel this, as he said too. There are a lot of guys who don't call themselves master blenders. Listen, we've put together blends that we like. We've put together blends, and remember, I'm not a brand owner. I work for Eric, so we put together blends that Eric likes. At the beginning, there were almost everything was stuff that Eric liked, but you have to expand the portfolio, and you have to expand the flavor profile of your line. You're going to make stuff you don't smoke. One of the biggest things I can credit with that is the first time we made a Connecticut. We made a Connecticut called Crema. We also made a Connecticut.
I love it.
Yeah, but I don't smoke Connecticut cigars. So I go to Nicaragua to make some blends. I make 4 or 5 blends. They all become something. One becomes Themis for Protocol. One becomes Ariel for Cornelius and Anthony, who's no longer in the industry. Ours. But when I get back, his first question is, "Are they good?" I said, "You're asking the wrong guy. I think they taste okay, but I am not a true Connecticut smoker. I just, not that I'm a snob. It's never been in my wheelhouse. But luckily, we got enough people who smoke Connecticut's that when we ran the samples, this is the one. Go with this one." And I got to credit my good friend Willie Herrera. Willie from Drew Estate. He came out with Undercrown Shade. And it was one of the first Connecticut's that I really liked. And I said, I got to make something similar, something that kind of falls in here. And then the other Connecticut that I really liked a lot, I like the Intemperance a lot. I mean, they're completely different animals, yes. But I have an idea of what we're going for. And, we didn't want to make one of these powerhouse Connecticut's that's just going to knock your socks off and destroy your mouth. I think our Connecticut has a fair amount of spice, has a fair amount of body. It's not your grandfather's Connecticut, but I think it's the Connecticut for the new age.
No, I would agree. I really like the Crema. I'm not a big Connecticut guy, especially since, in my opinion, a lot of Connecticut's have a tendency to be bitter, to not have that body. Oftentimes, I'll just say it. Oftentimes, Connecticut's are the ultralight of cigars.
They are. I mean, listen. I mean, when you think, I worked in a shop for a couple of years, and the guys who smoked Connecticut's were golfers and boaters and guys who were working around the yard. And a lot of the older guys like to smoke Connecticut's, because they were a light cigar, and it didn't, it wasn't going to tax them. And, it's I get it. And, and back then I was smoking predominantly Habanos, and I can't stand Habanos now. I'm so over Habano wrapper. It's ridiculous. I mean, but, it's, it just shows you how your palate changes. And it just shows you how your taste changed,
Absolutely. And in fact, you did. So real quick, I'm going to touch on this because Brian actually beat me to it. I was working my way there. Heard the Connecticut knuckle sandwich was amazing.
Now everything that I've said you can pretty much throw in the toilet because I'm smoking a Connecticut knuckle sandwich because it's really good. It's really good. And Eric kind of summed it up. We can't use this as a tagline. He goes, "It's a Connecticut, but it smokes like a Habano." I don't know if Connecticut smokers would like that tagline, but he loved it, and Guy loved it. And listen, if I'd have told you 5 years ago that about 1,000 boxes came in, if I got 1,000 boxes from Nicaragua, I'd tell you, well, we'll probably go through that in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But we got about that number in, and they were gone in 2 days. I mean, that's how much we've progressed. That's how much we've grown. And listen now, and this was something that took years for us as a team to embrace. And I think we've all embraced it. I go to a shop 4 times a week. I have my regular shop here in Miami. It's the boutique shop in Miami, and all the guys there are wonderful. And it's got all the different boutiques, not just ours. He has Blackworks and Roma and Ilusión and HVC. He carries everything. He's really specialized in boutiques. And I sit there and I talk to the guys and I hear it. Every time a guy walks in, they ask the same question: Alan, what's new? So you got to, that's why I'm a firm believer. And you got to put new things out, even if they're limited, even if they're not going to be core. You have to put new stuff because guys are attracted to new stuff. If they like your core, they will fall back. The core is always a nice fallback when there's no limited stuff. And yes, they'll say core lines are what drive sales. Sure, but you can't absolutely bore somebody with just your Habano, your Connecticut, and your Maduro. You have to have other shit.
You're Padron.
Listen, and we all want to be Padron. Listen, we all want to be Padron. I mean, it's a wonderful family. It's a wonderful cigar. I mean, and they go to the show, and we might have a sample, and there's no sale. There's nothing on sale. There's no sales force, and don't forget to pay me. I mean, that's the way it goes, man.
So you've been with Espinosa going on 11 years. What was your introduction? Did he just throw you the keys and say, go down to Nicaragua, to La Zona?
No.
Study? Like, how did you even start blending?
Well, remember when we started, his partner at the time, when him and his partner dissolved their company, his partner already at the time had a cigar that was launching. So we were behind the 8 ball. So we take our first trip to Nicaragua to work on a blend for the release, for his release in March. And then the show, this is in February. Work on a blend for the release in March. And we went to Nicaragua, and I think he saw that I really dug that. I dug being in the factory. I like working with the tobacco. I like the different tobacco. I was really the nerd in me really kind of came out. And as a guy who was a criminal analyst for years, I really like that whole analytical thing. How does this taste, and this and this and this. And I don't cook, by the way. I'm not a chef, and I'm not a barista, and I'm not a mixologist. But I really said, man, this is cool. And I think he saw that. So after we worked on the first blend with a couple of friends of his in the industry, that just because they're working elsewhere, they helped us a lot, kind of narrow down what we were looking for in the first one. Then later that year, I remember it was December, right before the holidays, that they closed the factories in Nicaragua. He tells me, "Can you go to Nicaragua?" I said, "Sure. When are we going?" He goes, "No, I want you to go." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Look, you know what I like. Talk to, use these guys that we used before as a guide. But I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that." And the cigar that we were going to do, that we ended up doing, was Bunker Buster that we did for Abe. And I went down there and worked on, back then, because I was so nervous. And listen, I love hearing, "Oh my God, I love your cigars." But I have in my office probably 70, maybe 100, 120 of the first blends that I made back 10, 11 years ago. And they were dog shit. They were bad. I mean, they were bad. We got really one good one, and then you have 8. You're like, what the hell is this?
Is that why you have so many left?
Yeah, because now every once in a while, when I'm feeling when I'm riding a little too high on that horse, I'll open up that humidor and I'll smoke one of those and go, "Yeah, this is bad. Still bad. It hasn't gotten better. Still bad." So that became Bunker Buster, and that was a huge cigar for us because Abe made us a part of his microblend series. and we hosted the dinner that night, and we were there, and it was a chance to actually get some exposure, and everything else after that, we rode the wave along pretty good, and then Laranja came, and then when Laranja came, everything kind of changed.
So why did everything change at Laranja? Is it because of I know that's Eric's favorite cigar.
Well, no, Eric's favorite cigar is not Laranja, it's Larange.
Or
Larange is the appropriate way to say it.
I'm sorry,
The appropriate no, I'm messing with you. He just says it wrong. It's Laranja. It's Laranja, but Larange. Like he thinks it's a ZZ Top song. But everything kind of changed because now all of a sudden we started to make, we made 1 or 2 lists every year, but now we were starting to make 4 or 5 lists, and people were clamoring for that cigar. It was the first cigar that we ever had a back order on, that we went through them. We had a back order. It was our first cigar as a company, as Espinosa Cigars, that hit CA's top 25. Not that CA's top 25 is better than anybody else, but it's the one print media that, that's the one that drives sales. That's, that and Snob. Now I'll tell you, even Snob drives, they both drive sales, and things change from there. And it really, it's, if you look back, there was not once ever in this 11 years did we say we're not going to make it. But that show in particular, we looked at each other and we went, well, I think we cleared the first hurdle. We're on our way here. You know what I mean?
So let me ask you, who told who? Well, hold on, let me back up. You don't know that Cigar Aficionado is putting you on the list until they announce it. They don't preemptively tell you.
No, they don't call us.
Okay.
Listen, I wish they would. Because, we know there's a brand that 10, 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, won Cigar of the Year and was not ready. I mean, was not ready inventory wise to handle the bum rush that comes from the Cigar of the Year. So, I mean, hell, it would be great, but they didn't call us. And as a matter of fact, I'll go out on a limb and say that in the office, we didn't know if we were going to make the top 25 this year. I had an inkling that we would, but I also know that our cigar was rated really early in the year. And those things tend to, what have you done for me lately? And people, a lot of guys release cigars later in the year just for that reason, to be a part of the conversation at the end. But, it worked out. I mean, it really worked out for us. We had no fair warning that it was coming. Not at all.
So who found out first? What was that discussion? Did you call Eric? Did Eric call you? Did he start?
Oh, Brian,
flipping out. What was that like?
Let me tell you something. And you can ask anybody who works in our company. Those weeks in December leading up to the Cigar Aficionado Top 25, it's a shitstorm for me. The stomach's upset. How did this guy make it? That, oh, please, I had that. The personal things that you go through, these personal, the trying to argue with Jesus. Well, come on, G, it's my turn. How did that guy? Oh my God, that cigar's all. I go through that every year. Not anymore, not as much anymore. But at the beginning, I did, and I really felt strong about Laranja. Got a really high rating, and in that particular year, the resmoke, I don't know their methodologies, and I mean, it seems to be that every time I get an explanation, it's a little different. But I know they smoke it, then they come and revisit it. But I think every cigar between 6 and 14 did about the same. So it was just slotting. I mean, we were 13th. We could have easily been 8th, or we could have been 10th, or we could have been 11th. I mean, it's how it felt. But it was great for us because it was our first print media cigar award, and like I said, then the phone started to ring, and things really took off for us.
So since we're touching on lists, and I understand you got to be a little bit diplomatic probably with your theories on lists. What do you, if somebody comes up to you and says, I only smoke the lists, what would be your response to it? Because there is, believe it or not, a lounge in Colorado Springs. I'm not going to name it, but he only stocks CA's 25 list.
Listen,
that's it.
I can't. I'm not. Is it a shop that put out this list? Is that what you're talking about? It's a shop that makes a list, or a shop that only follows the list?
I'm talking about a shop that only follows the list. But I also have met people that have been like, if it's not on CA's list, I don't want to try it.
All right, I'll address both. First of all, I think a shop nobody is in any position to tell a shop how to work it because every shop is different. I know there's a shop in the Northeast that's a huge 6x60 shop. There's a shop in Texas that's a straight Lancero shop. There's a shop I went into that has the 40%, almost 50% of their lines are Connecticut. The shop, I always said, man, when I retired, I want to open up my own shop. Then I realized what a headache that would be, and I'm glad I never did it. But you could have the greatest list of cigars you want to bring in for your shop. But if your clientele likes to smoke bundles and they want to smoke, they only want you to bring in bundles, and it's paying the rent and you're making money, guess what? Your shop is going to only have bundles. And if that's what that shop owner has got his clientele used to, and that's what works for them, that's, you can't criticize that. Now, people who only want to smoke the list, it's the same reason that we all have XM radio. I listen to Channel 33 New Wave. You might listen to Lithium. Everybody's got a thing. I mean, sometimes they're predisposed to only want to smoke stuff on the list. Good luck finding the 3 Cubans or the 4 Cubans that make the list every year. I'm sure you can find them. They may not be real, but I'm sure you can find them.
$500 for them.
Well, I think what bothers me more are the lists that come out where the site has 20. He has 20 top 20 cigars. His top 20 cigars of 2023, and 10 of them are the same brand. That's a problem. That's a problem. Listen, that's a problem. And I'm not calling anybody out because actually I'm in a really good mood now that I'm retired. I've tried to be a better person. But some of these lists, you look at them, and you go, what the fuck? And then you have some other lists where they're putting cigars that, all right. So here's, all right, hold on. Let me back up for a second. What's your criteria? Is it cigars of the year that are new, or just cigars of the year that are just good every year? If that's the case, how is there's not 5 Puentes and 5 Padrones in every one of those lists? Let's start off there. But if that's not the case, how can you put out your top cigars of 2022 and you have a cigar that was released 2 years ago? Well, wait a minute. That cigar was 2 years old. How did that make your list? And so, you kind of sit there and you just take the good with the bad for every one of those groups, that every one of these sites that has one of those lists where the guy either only smokes the samples he gets or is in love with a brand. There's good reputable sites like Developing Palates, who has 4 guys who smoke a shit ton of cigars, and Coop's site, and then the Dojo guys, all these guys who realize, yes, I have an Espinosa cigar that it's great. It might not be the one I like. It might be, I might say, well, I think Oswaldo was a better cigar, but it's not. It's the one that hit their palate. But when you have, even a site that had 10 of our cigars on there, I would sit there and go, dude, there's a lot of good cigars out there. And anybody who knows me knows that I smoke a lot of other people's stuff because variety is the spice of life. I smoke my stuff during the day, and then when I go to the shop, I ask the question. And what's the question that you ask when you walk into a shop, Ryan?
What do you got that's new?
What's new? So that's what I do.
No, absolutely. Skip, just to address some kind of questions here in the comments, Skip wants you to bring back the psychedelic turtle.
Which Skip? Oh, Skip Happy.
John Lovell asks, do you think the Giants were smart to not sign, I don't know what that is, Correa?
All right, so if I can answer that question before you go to your next one. I'm a huge baseball fan. Those guys who know me know I'm a huge baseball fan. I was very excited.
Baseball, okay, Giants.
I was very excited that the Giants passed on Carlos Correa, and that the Mets were going to lock up Carlos Correa. But then the Mets front office went through the same doctor that checked Correa out for the Giants, and obviously they saw something that. They went to the same guy. It's not like they went to another doctor and get an opinion. And Correa then either signed with the Giants or with the Mets. So I think in the long run, to give my friend Robbie Rasmussen, who's a huge Giants fan, some credit, maybe I think the Giants and the Mets were both very smart. The only winner here is Scott Boras and Correa, who he signed back with the Twins for $200 million for 6 years or something, some crazy shit like that. So it's,
those
right, what else?
Guys get paid a ton.
The
other one here is from Lou. Do you have to advertise in Cigar Aficionado to be considered for the list.
No, I don't think that's true. Well, wait. First of all, I don't. Cuba doesn't advertise a Cigar Aficionado, and they make the list every year, and they won this year. So no, I don't think that's true. Look, there's a lot of hearsay, a lot of scuttlebutt on those things. You know, we don't. I mean, we have advertised maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 11 years in Cigar Aficionado, and we've made the list 6 times. So I mean, it's I don't think that's accurate. I think that component seems. I think that component's a little more readily true for some other magazines, but not for CA, and I don't think for Snob as well.
So, since we're on the topic of lists, I just have one more question on it for you. Do you think it's fair that CA throws Cubans in? I know they're international. I know the UK and Europe reads CA, but do you think they should have like a separate list of Cubans and then keep the American list to what it could actually be gotten in the States?
I have a couple of points on this, and they're a little conflicted. So I just want you to if you let me expound on them, I will.
Go ahead.
It's their magazine. So that my first point will be, and I said this not too long ago. I think I did the Coop CA show. It's their magazine, and just like if it was your magazine or my magazine, we're going to do whatever the fuck we want. And if they want to put Cubans in it, that's fine. On a personal note, I don't smoke Cuban cigars. I have an issue. If Cuba were to fall into the ocean tomorrow, I wouldn't shed a tear. That's because my parents were from Cuba, and the whole revolution and losing what they had and coming to this country and struggling, that bothers me. The United States is the world's largest cigar market. I think it's a little coyish maybe to, hey, look, this Cuban is number one, and, you should go out and smoke it. But listen, and I said this, like I said, a couple weeks ago, how can you have a conversation about rock and roll and not talk about the Beatles? How can you have a conversation about tobacco and rate cigars and not talk about Cuba? I understand it's it's an international publication. The people who run CA have been to Cuba many times, and it's what it is. It's their magazine, and if they want,
Sure.
and I think there's a couple of other sites who've reviewed Cuban cigars in the last couple of years. It's what they want to do. It's their prerogative, and really, it sounds childish to argue about it. I was you'd have talked to me about this 5 years ago. My viewpoint would have been completely different, but I get it, and business is business. You have to, you can't have a conversation about tobacco and not include Cuba.
So, I knew that you were Cuban. Is your parents first generation?
My parents.
Here?
I was born in this country. My parents came in the 60s. So okay. I am the first generation. I am of the first generation Cuban American. We're all in our late 50s, our 50s to early 60s.
So where did your family go from Cuba to Miami?
Oh, my mother left the year after the revolution in 60, and she went to Arkansas. They said back in those days, when you were migratory, you went where they sent you, and they sent her, and which probably would not be a bad idea now, because instead of and I know a lot of immigrants come to the country and they want to go to where their families are, which are usually major urban centers, but they sent her to Arkansas, and there wasn't another Cuban anywhere in Arkansas. And there she was, and she was there for a couple of years. And then her brother asked her to come to New Jersey, and she went to New Jersey. My dad leaves Cuba in 1962 and a half. He goes to Spain. He's in Spain for about a year and a half. Then he ends up in New Jersey. And as my mother calls it, the worst day of her life when she meets my dad. And, and here I am.
So I proposed this question to George Rico of Gran Habano. I'm sure you're familiar with him or know him personally.
I know George.
And I'd be interested to propose it to you as well. Now, you had said that you really wouldn't mind if Cuba fell off the face of the earth in some fashion.
For me, I have no interest in it personally.
Sure.
And listen, I know a lot of guys in the cigar industry who go to Cuba, but to me, I'll give you the example that I kind of think of. If you wanted to go to Cuba tomorrow, that's fine, because Cuba is not a personal issue for you. Americans love time machines. And I consider myself an American. I was born in this country. I served in the Army. I was in, I served my county. I am an American. I have a personal cross that I drag. But for those who go to Cuba and they go see the tobacco fields and they go do this and they go do that, it's not personal. That's not an issue for you. My issue more is with the ones who allegedly left as political prisoners and continue to go back to Cuba and fund and send money and help support the regime there through back channel of providing providing money for black market items and for their necessity and their needs to survive. That's my issue. But that's my issue. I can't put that on anybody else. And I have many friends who are not of Cuban descent who don't see it the same way, and they respect my opinion and I respect theirs. So what was the question you posed, George?
So the question I proposed, I asked George was, of all the terrible things that Fidel did, because I think vast majority of them were absolutely despicable, do you feel that him taking over the cigar industry in Cuba, forcing the Plasencias, the Padrones, the Fuentes out and to Nicaragua, Honduras, Dominican, do you think that was, in hindsight, probably the best thing for the cigar industry in the sense of variety, or do you think that would have happened naturally?
Well, all right. When the regime took over all the American properties there and all the American business there, they did it because obviously their stance is anti-capitalist and the imperialist Yankees and all this other bullshit. Was it the best thing that happened to the cigar industry? Yeah, I think so. Listen, who knows? We can flip a coin. Let's look at both sides of it. If Cuba had changed, if the revolution came, but it wasn't a Marxist revolution, it would have been something like a social democracy that you see in some parts of the Central America. Could there have been coexistence between some of these? Could there have been coexistence? Sure, as long as they get their peace, because that's what they want. But since there wasn't, and the crackdown came, and then the embargo came, they weren't privy. This is still a country that's still making great cigars without access to top-notch equipment, top-notch fumigation, top-notch fertilizers. They're still managing to make great cigars. But I think diversity is a great thing. I mean, right now, what's better than I know there are a lot of Dominican cigar smokers, and I started as a Dominican cigar smoker, but right now, what's hotter than a Nicaraguan cigar?
Literally, I mean, it's the spiciest cigar on the planet.
And I think it's good that these guys got a chance to leave and take their knowledge on the road and take it elsewhere. And the cigar industry in Nicaragua is it's a part of their economy. Honduras and Costa Rica not so much, but the Dominican and I'm glad. Listen, anything that I like chocolate milk. If I can get 7 varieties of chocolate milk, I'm happy with.
So let's move on to your experience, your groundwork, how you built yourself up in this industry. Who did you learn under in the beginning? Did Eric send you to another factory to play with? Like, how did that?
There are guys. I am not. Well, first of all, I am not a great people person. I'm. I like guys that what you see is what you get. I've always been big fans of those people. So, for Eric to say, go down there and make friends with this guy, that wasn't going to really work out. But at the beginning, I was so enthralled with this that there were some guys who were very important in what was fundamentally the groundwork of the knowledge that I have now that I didn't have then. Listen, I spent a lot of time with Nick Malolo. I spent a lot of time with Willie Herrera. I spent a lot of time with Amit Perez Carrillo, who runs the Cavitusa factory in Nicaragua. I spent a lot of time. This is I'm talking about my very first 1 or 2 years. I spent a lot of time with the guy who runs our factory there and his father, who ran a cigar factory in Cuba as an administrator, who knew a lot about tobacco, and I learned. But remember, the first couple of years was just pretty much making stuff that was just for us. I don't want to say it's not that it was good, it wasn't good or anything, but it was just we weren't doing anything out of the ordinary. I mean, we didn't have a Connecticut for like 6 years. We came out with a Connecticut 5 years ago. So I mean, it was Habano and a Habano here and a Habano there, and I had an idea of what Eric liked. And then as I started to go by myself, I started to develop other relationships. I'd go to Nicaragua and I'd go hang out with Skip Martin. Skip Martin's a friend of mine, a guy who knows a lot about tobacco and likes to talk tobacco when we're not talking shit. We're talking tobacco. The guy who worked with him also as well. When I go to Nicaragua, I like to talk. My circle is mostly the guys who are hands-on, who make the cigars. Sure. And when you go to Nicaragua, Steve might be there, or I'll have dinner with James Brown, or guys who are our size, but a different perspective, a different prerogative, a different face profile, and I like that. I really dug that. So my friends are not really, they're kind of in their respective thing, and those are the guys. Listen, I'm still learning. We wanted to make a Candela cigar, and I must have made 6 of them in the week I was there. I mean, these taste like shit. I mean, these are just awful. And this is after tasting every single Candela I could smoke. And then
wasabi's great.
Thank you, I appreciate that. But it took me a trip to a factory to talk to a guy and say, listen, I know you make a Candela. I like your Candela. This is what I'm doing with mine. But there's something fucked up here. And he said, do this. Take that out and put this in and see what happens. And I drove my ass back to the factory and take this out and put this in. Wait a minute. We have two good Candelas. We did a cigar called Pickle Juice for La Huala, yep, which was a huge, a novelty hit. Everybody loved it. And then Wasabi, that's going on its 6th year, I think.
Yeah, Wasabi is fantastic. I think that's one of my favorite in the Candelas. It's got the body. It's not a mild Candela. It's got a little bit of a buzz to it.
And I wanted to call that cigar Kermit's Johnson. But we really didn't.
Oh my gosh!
Right? But we just really didn't want the Children's Television Network to come after us, because the Sesame Street, those guys don't fuck around.
Or
so
Muppets.
Those Muppets guys, animal. You walk into the shop and animals waiting for you. So that was that, and then we did something funky. We box pressed it. I don't think I know anybody else who has a box press Candela.
Well, no, because it's a really thin wrapper, really is, yeah. And it's a tough wrapper. It's got to be a tough wrapper to figure out how to load to be able to box press. But
it worked very wet, sir. Very wet. We worked very wet. Very, very wet.
So as you're going through this and you're kind of thrust into this, where Eric's sending you here, you're figuring out more friends, connections. What was the biggest misconception you had as a non-industry buyer that changed once you became in the industry?
First of all, a lot of people think this is a sexy industry, and it is. It's very sexy. I mean, people, the events and the cigars and the pairings and the lounge. That's great. That's all fantastic. They don't understand the sweat, the heat, and especially the beginning when we couldn't get tobacco, when we weren't getting the best quality tobacco we could get, that other people our size were getting. That was the biggest wake up call. Oh shit, it's hard to get this. I remember going to get tobacco at a distributor, and the guy told me I don't have any. And I'm at a meeting with somebody, another guy who has a factory. I'm sitting in with them in a conference room. We're just shooting the shit. Same guy walks in and tells him, I have that tobacco you're looking for, which was exactly the same tobacco I was asking for. That's the kind of shit that happened. That was my biggest misconception, that it was just going to be easy. You just went down there and you're going to BJ's and let me get a pallet of this and a pallet of that. That's just not how it worked. That's not how it worked. That was probably my biggest misconception. I'll tell you the one thing that spoiled me in the cigar industry. When you buy a cigar, I mean, I always made fun of the guys who have like, there's a guy who's a big Lazona guy. His name is Ron Wolf. He has like it looks like, it looks like a scabbard that, he smokes that cigar down to an inch. And you sit there and you go, why would you smoke it down to, when you have to buy them, it's different than when you're just, when you're making them yourself and you smoke half of it and you toss it, so that's another thing. That's one of the spoils of being in the cigar industry.
And I would agree with that. I mean, you guys are probably smoking at times anywhere from 5 to 10 cigars, if not more, a day when you're doing test blends. I've spoke with several quote unquote master blenders or blenders for other companies that will say I only smoke like the first third of it or smoke the first half of it because I'm just smoking so many.
Well, being in Nicaragua is different. Listen, I don't smoke acid. I am not an acid smoker. I will argue and I will fight somebody who tells me that acids don't have a place in the cigar industry. Acids are a gateway cigar. They're a gateway cigar
a lot,
and they're introductory cigars for a lot of people.
Yes.
But when I go to Nicaragua, I take a couple acids because at the end of the day, your mouth is it's like a homeless man's taint. It's just absolutely beat up. Your mouth is just absolutely beat up. So you're just, you need something to go, oh my God, hey, look, I can taste my tongue again. So and as for master, I know you gave the master blender air quote thing. The guys who are master blenders don't call themselves master blenders. The guys who know what they're doing just say this is what I do. I don't need to say that I'm this, that label myself, and that I can taste color, and sell you a bullshit story about this special tobacco that was hidden under a room in a cathedral where Vestal virgins. I mean, you don't need any of that bullshit. You don't really need that. But a lot of guys do that. A lot of guys like to take on airs, and that's fine. I don't know any guys like that. I know them, but I don't associate with any of the guys. All the guys who I consider my friends are real deal, are real OGs, real guys and I respect the guys who live in Nicaragua. Listen, going to Nicaragua, and I went last year for the first time in 2 years, and I'm going again in a couple of weeks. Those guys who live the life down there, you gotta give them their fucking rep. You gotta give them their props.
Absolutely,
that's some real shit down there. We have all these commodities, and I'm a little hungry. I'm gonna drive over to the 24-hour drive-through. I don't got that necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Wi-Fi is a mission.
Absolutely.
So I give a lot of respect to the guys, but the guys that I associate with, that I consider friends, and that I look to spend time with when I'm there, those guys are real deal. They don't need to walk around with a card telling you what they are. You know who the hell they are.
Oh yeah, no, that was my title. That essentially that I necessarily.
No, and that's fine. Listen, I understand. You're gonna, in your time doing this, you're gonna run across some guys who want to be called that. And that's fine.
Sure.
That's fine. Whatever, bro. Whatever. Eat a dick. I don't know what to tell him. Eat a
So Kevin Shahan asks, will we ever see a Wasabi Lancero? Now, before you answer that, Hector, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure at Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest, there was a 5-pack of Lanceros, and in it, because I remember smoking one, was a Wasabi Lancero.
And shortly after the Rocky Mountain Cigar Fest, we were inundated with so many requests for the Lancero that you will see it in a couple of weeks.
Nice. Well, there you go, Kevin. We got a Lancero.
Lancero, what's up?
So, since we're on the topic of Lanceros, one of my personal favorite size of cigars, the Lancero, and in fact, the Corona is my other one. I like the thinner ring gauge. I think it brings in more of the wrapper. I think it brings in a little bit more of the better part of the cigar, which is, in my opinion, the wrapper. It's most expensive. What's your thoughts on Lanceros? Why more companies don't maybe make them? Do you think? And let me propose it a little bit differently. One of the Lanceros were like some of the original sizes of cigars. When you look at the old 50s shows, you see them. They're Lanceros, they're Panatellas,
they're Perfectos.
But why did those fall by the wayside?
In my office, I have a poster that's from Habanos, but I didn't get it at Habanos, so I don't feel bad having it. There's 60 different ring gauges, and only one of them is Lancero. Everything else, you know, it runs the gambit. All right, I'm going to tell you what retailers have told me. Lanceros don't sell.
Which is crazy.
Retailers tell me Lancero don't sell. Their guys don't buy boxes of Lanceros. If you smoke a Lancero, say you're a Lancero smoker, and you walk into Ted's Cigar on Broad Street. I just made that up. And Ted and they don't have Laranja Lancero, but they have the Oliva Lancero. You've got a Lancero to smoke. You don't have to buy a box. You can just pick up. There's always enough Lanceros in the shop that if you want a Lancero, you can find a Lancero. But I've heard retailers tell me Lanceros don't sell. Listen, this is when I worked in retail. Guys would come in and go, I want this in a torpedo. I didn't have the torpedo or the Bellicoso. I said, but I got the Toro. He goes, yeah, but I like the Bellicoso. I go, why don't you save yourself 75 cents and get the Toro? He goes, how am I saving myself 75 cents? I go, because it costs 75 cents more, and all you're going to do is cut off the tip anyway.
Correct.
Yeah. I never think of it, you know. And listen, I'm no genius, but I mean that's what made sense to me.
Yeah.
We don't look. Speaking of torpedoes and bellicosos, we might make 5 in our portfolio. I think the blue, the red, the punta, sarsaparilla, and there's got to be another one in there somewhere. We don't make a lot of those. You know why? Because I don't use a cutter. Eric doesn't use a cutter. You ask us for a cutter, and we made a Warhead and a Figurado one. You see us that we use our teeth. My size of choice, and you can see my influence in the company is 6x48. That is my size.
That's in fact the Azulejo size that I smoke. In fact,
well, that's a 6x46. But I mean, I do the
6x46. Yeah,
I smoke a 6x48, 6.5x48 box press. Warzone has it. Laranja Kaixa has it. The new Uncle Sandwich has it. I love 6x48. It's a great size for me. I don't think Churchills are dead. I don't think Churchills are the norm now. But if you looked at the Cigar Aficionado Top 25, I think they had 7 Churchills on. So maybe Churchill's making a comeback. But I like that size. It's long enough that it's a good hour and a half smoke, and it's not too cumbersome. I'm not a 60 ring smoker. I'm not. But there are guys who like 60 rings. So you know what I have to do? I have to make 60 ring cigars. You have to do. You can't make sizes or brands or lines, only that you have to make for the masses. And the 60 ring, if I think from everything that we've talked about with all the people that I know that are in this industry who know a lot more than me, the 60 ring really came into prominence when the recession hit, when people started to have, they could see that they could buy a 60 ring cigar for the same price they were buying it for less than they were paying for a Lancero. Then Tom came in with his 7x70s and really kind of has owned that market, and it's continued to thrive. I mean, and guys who like 60 ring like 60 ring. I make a couple of 60 rings. I box press them because it's a little less intrusive. Yep. The Azulejo comes in a 60 ring. The Warhead, we were having our meeting about what the Warhead was last year. And Hector, we're going to make it 6x60. Bro, I don't know. 6x60. We made 3,000 boxes. Gone. So, we
do you think it's the concept, the mind telling people because it's bigger, it's a better value?
There are people who might have, at the beginning, that might have been the case. But if you also think about the fat cat in the cartoons that you're talking about back in the day, it was always a big ass cigar. The boss always had the big ass cigar,
That's
so,
true.
Maybe it was the perception, maybe it was the fact that, I only have enough money for, I want to buy 2 cigars, I only have enough to buy these 2, and they're 60 ring, I'll learn to love them. At the end of the day, if the cigar is good, the ring gauge is one of those things like, well, do you like black interior or dark gray interior? It's not a big for me, but since I have the option to choose, and I don't choose to smoke 60s, but I've had some 60s. I had the Warhead in 60. I thought it smoked great. I had the Azulejo in 60. So, it's a preference, man. It's just a preference, man.
So, you had mentioned that you were in the military. Now, that's one thing I didn't know about you. I usually try to come into these with just very conversational, no notes in front of me, because I don't want to be focused on what questions I'm going to ask next, just casually have a conversation. What branch, what did you do? And did you enjoy it?
Of course. I like to say that when people ask me when I was in the Army, I always say I was in the Army 100 pounds ago. I was in the Army from 84 to 87. I was a radio teletype operator. I was in the Signal Corps. And the Signal Corps is lovingly called, grunts. Infantrymen are called grunts, and artillery guys are called gun bunnies, and signal guys are called flag fags. That's what they called us because in the old days you communicated signal through flag. But as luck would have it, my years in the Army, if it was raining vagina, I would get hit in the head with a dick. I got both of my assignments were in combat arms units. I was assigned to I was in the 2nd Infantry Division, which is in Korea, which is close to the border. Some of the camps are on the border, so you spend your life in the field. And then when I came stateside, I said, "Well, I'm going to be stateside." I get sent to a field artillery unit in Fort Sill, and those gun bunnies spend their life in the field as well. So I love being in the Army. I wouldn't be the man I am today had I not joined the Army. I instilled that in my children as well. My son joined the Army, and my son left for the Army right at the beginning of the Iraq War, and he did a year and a half in the sandpit and in the sandbox, and he came back more of a man than I'll ever be. So and we're proud Americans. We're not fringe here by any means, but we stand for the national anthem, and we we have a flag in our yard, and that's I'm an American. I love being an American, and I tell people all the time when I meet people who are just ate up, who are just, you look at them and you said, I always tell them, a couple of years in the military would have done you a world of good. I mean, just a world of good. And
my dad and granddad always told me I was a little shit.
couple of years in the Army would have done you great. So I get out of the Army, and I have to wait a year or more or less, and then I get hired by Miami-Dade, and 32 years later, here I am, buddy. I've been retired a year and a half now, and it's been great. I mean, I miss the circus. I just don't miss the clowns. I miss the circus. My son followed in my footsteps. My son works on the department, and he's been on almost 9 years now, and it's not, listen, for the old timers, when I joined the department, the department's not the same as it was 20 years ago. Now I've been waiting my whole life to tell him the department's not the same as it was 20 years ago. This is bullshit. Can't even thump a guy anymore. What the hell? So I've become that guy,
So what was if somebody was to ask you, what was the thing you hated most about the military, and what was the thing you loved the most about the military? How would you answer that?
Being in the listen, I only made it to E4. I didn't become a sergeant. I only made it to specialist. And what I hated about the Army, what I didn't like about the Army, and there's not much, but I think what I didn't like with the Army is sometimes you get put on some shit details. And when you are a non-combat arms guy with a combat arms unit, you have to take a lot of shit. You got to take a lot of shit, but that's probably the thing I hated the least. I mean, listen, this is 30 years ago. Oh my God, 30 years ago. It's going to be 40 years. It's going to be 40 years ago in a couple of years. And I was a young guy. I was in shape. So the running, all that shit, that wasn't a problem.
Hey, round is a shape. I'm round.
Right. You're right. I'm in shape too, What I loved about the Army, though, was the camaraderie. I mean, I really liked being a part of the team. And if you're not a team guy, the military is not for you.
Sure.
Even if it's cliquish, you're still a part of a team. So it was only the next logical step that once I left the Army, I was going to go into something that was, another team, another paramilitary organization. And I never skipped a beat. I mean, 32 years, never got in trouble, worked in great assignments. I worked in some of the best assignments in our department. And I owe, and a lot of people might not say that's a good thing, but I owe the person who I am now, who's kind of ornery and a little bit of a shit show and, and always angry all the time, but I owe that to the department. But you know what? I tell people all the time, I say, listen, you don't have the same problems that we've had. We don't have to deal with the same shitbirds that we deal with, but But I have no regrets. I mean, outside of the fact that you know, when you're a low ranking guy, you're the lowest guy on the totem pole, and that shit happens. But being in the Army, being part of a team, and traveling, you know, at the airport, and you know, the girls and all that, it was a great time.
So you're out of the military, you're knocking down Miami-Dade's door. When you got hired through them, what was the position you got hired at? I assume it was different than what you retired at.
No, it's listen. There's a whole career track for criminal. They're like, they've become really glorified on TV in the last 10 years. You know, the techie guy that, you know, listens to, you know, he does the financials and runs, you know, he can find people, and you know, it does on-site intelligence and gathers information. That's been my career path. You know, as you move forward, you make more money. There's no really, that's the career path that I chose. That's the one that I wanted to do. You know, it's
so you were never like
I'm not breaking down anybody's door.
Cop. You were never a beat cop or whatever.
Those guys, no, fuck that. That's not for me. I'd rather, you know, the guy was, I chased the guy for 3 blocks. Why'd you chase the guy for 3 blocks? You know, you have his tag on his car. Just go to his house and wait for him. Why would you play safe? Be smart. Play safe. You know, but when I joined the police department, that whole criminal analyst field was just starting to be developed. And I did a little bit of that intelligence stuff in the Army, because you do a lot of cross training in the Army. You learn how to do this, and then you learn how to do that. So we were going online back in the mid '80s, you know, using, you know, our phone modems but we weren't using the internet, but we learned how to use data systems to track people. And I really had a knack for finding people. That was my thing. Finding people, loved it. And then when MySpace came, I loved MySpace. MySpace
made it easy.
That was my jam, bro. I loved it. You know, oh, you'll never find me. Oh, please, bro, come on. You know.
So, so I know you did more on the probably the in-office aspect of things, but what is one case that you worked that just still to this day either you couldn't solve and you think about, or what was a case that was just the most fun case you've worked on, whether it be intellectually finding somebody?
All right, the best one we did. All right, I've got to make sure that I censor anything that I'm going to tell you. I got to make sure that I keep everything censored here, because I was lucky enough to work in internal affairs for 6 years. And we worked on our internal affairs in our department, worked on the discipline side, and then you had a side that did criminal conspiracy. So the discipline side was, this officer was rude to me, this officer slapped me, this officer did this, he beat me up, that bullshit. The discipline would handle that. Our side was, hey, this guy is selling drugs, this guy is protecting drug dealers, this guy's he's committing crime while on duty. That's what we worked. So the best case that we had, the most fun case we had, which is really the longest case we ever had, there were rumors that there was a squad in one of the local district stations that wasn't responding to calls. So they would say, you know, like a call would go out, sick and injured person, and they would be like 2 blocks away, but they'd get on the radio and say, well, I'm coming from a distance, I'll be there, advise me when fire rescue's there. Or, you know, they'd send that unit to go take a signal, but he would team up with his buddy. His buddy would go take the signal for him. He'd go to the mall and, you know, lollygagging around with his girlfriend at the mall or shooting the shit with his girls. And then he said, hey, I'm here. Get on the radio and say, I'm here. Hey, I'm here. You know, that kind of shit. They were just, none of this was criminal. It was our best case and it wasn't criminal, but it was a whole squad that these guys were just fucking up. So we worked them for almost 6 months, 5 months, I think. And we had 130 on the supervisor. We had over 130 charges, you know, all administrative. They all got fired. And 3 of them fought to get their jobs back. But that's what we did. I mean, you have to police the police. If you don't, you know, you have to. The other cases, listen, I mean, my career was pretty much, I did housing police. I did crime scene, which I didn't like. I worked in robbery where you're kind of chasing the same guy. He's either a white Latin male, a black male, or a white male, 5'9", 170 pounds, jean shorts and a white t-shirt. but you're chasing the same guy. Then from there, I went to the gang unit where that's where I really kind of hit my stride. I got to leave the office a little bit more and be more
in the field,
out in the field, doing on-site intel and shit like that. And then, the time at PCB the time at Internal Affairs was fantastic. I left Internal Affairs not because I wanted to, but I had already started working for Eric. So I really wanted, this was what I knew this was going to be my second career. So a chance came to go work in an intel unit and work Cuba and Central America as my assignment. How can I not do that? So I went to do that. There wasn't a lot of overtime involved. I worked, it was pretty much 6 to 2, 7 to 3, and I didn't have the problems that I had when I worked in Internal Affairs, where if we were following you and you worked midnights, guess what? We worked midnights. So,
and you probably weren't very well liked in the beat cop world.
It was a rough 6 years, but I used to tell guys all the time, they'd go, "Oh, bro, I heard you went to work for the Rat Squad." Yeah, but if you see us, don't worry. It's when you don't see us that you should worry. That's when you should. And that still stands true to this day.
Speaking of Eric, I had an acquaintance that he's familiar with. I don't understand that.
Yeah, well, and I didn't want to bring up that case because that case is a little touchy, but there was a guy who used to go to cigar shops. He was a police officer. He went to cigar shops, and he got a little tied up in some nefarious activity. And him and his buddy, there was a bookie who owed a guy 130 large. So him and his buddy, the police officer, were hired to take the guy down, take his money, and then they would split the pot later. And they did that. Wow. And unfortunately, their timing was bad. There's a major
illegal.
No, not only that it's illegal, but the day that they did the rip, they did it in the middle of rush hour in a major thoroughfare here in Miami. And while they got away with it at the beginning, once we started to put the pieces together and we relieved him of duty, the case fell on my lap because I was kind of the phone guy. Phone records that was my shit too. So for a month, I worked solidly with this guy's phone records dating back a month prior to the incident. So we had the officer, the other guy who was with the officer, the guy, the bookie, we had the victim, and I could show you how they were following the victim to do the rob. I mean, you could show the conspiracy. And eventually when we went to court, we were so prepared. We had such a strong case that he pled. And he got 8 years. He did 8 years for this robbery. It was armed robbery, and such a stupid guy that the guy who went with him to do the crime, he dressed him as a police officer. So he had the robbery, and then he had the impersonating a police officer charge on top of that. So it was just a cluster. But it was fun. And the reason Junior Eric's son saying that is that Junior knows the guy because he used to frequent the shop that Junior was a clerk at, like I was.
So you were born in New Jersey, correct?
Sure.
I don't hear any sort of Jersey accent from you at all. Where the hell did that go?
Well, we moved. My brother, rest in peace. My brother was born with Down syndrome. He was born very sickly, so the weather in New Jersey was very tough on his system, on his breathing and his lungs. So in '73, we moved to Miami. So, I don't have that Jersey thing, and actually, I'm pretty proud. My parents don't speak English to this day. They don't speak English, and I didn't learn to speak English till I went to school. I mean, I only spoke Spanish at home, and I kind of pride myself on the fact that I don't have the Jersey accent, and I don't have the Spanish. Oh yeah, man, that Spanish accent, man. I don't have that. I don't sound like my good friend Pedro. I kind of pride myself on the fact that that I have a really clean. My diction is really clean.
So you were how old? And you said 76 or something.
In 74, I was in 73. I was 7 years old. So we moved down here.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, we moved down here in 73. I was 7.
So was it an older brother or younger?
No, my little brother. My little brother.
Little brother.
He was.
He's no longer with us.
Yeah, he passed away last year.
Okay,
Year before
very
last,
sorry.
he passed. Yeah,
Wow,
he
he lived a long time for
he
Down syndrome.
he made it to 50.
That's awesome. So you moved when you were 7. Did you ever miss, or do you remember much of Jersey growing up?
No, I don't really listen. I don't remember much of New Jersey. I remember the names. Oh, Newark and Patterson and Bergen Line, and I remember I lived on something called Kennedy Avenue. But I was I was in Philadelphia 2 weeks ago on a sales trip with one of our reps. I did a couple of events. I did an event at a huge shop. Well, it's a small shop, but it's a huge Espinosa shop in Bath, Pennsylvania, Caravan Cigars. So so one of the days we were there, Mark Weisenberger, who's the broker who reps us in the Northeast, took me into Jersey to go see a shop, and I walked in. I had none of that deja vu or none of that. Oh, Jersey, I don't have that. As a matter of fact, when we drove in through Jersey, all I kept hearing in my head was the theme to The Sopranos. That's all I kept hearing. Cold cut place and a sandwich place. That's it was nice. It was a really nice shop in Jersey, but I don't have that connection to it. When I left for the army and came back home for the first time, that was overwhelming. You're driving through Miami, go, oh my God, this take me home. I remember, but not Jersey. Sadly, not Jersey.
Was your family supportive of you going into the military? And let me ask a part 2 to that really fast. Was the military, did you feel at the time that the military was going to be your stepping stone into a better life?
I joined the military. When I left for basic training, I was still 17, a little bit over 17 and a half when I left for the Army. And I had to leave for the Army because my parents were going through a pretty bad divorce and I couldn't stand either one of them. I mean, I'm not telling you anything that's not new. I mean, if they were right here, they'd nod because they know it's true. They were going to kill each other. And I just was tired of it. And I was working at a supermarket making, for those of you who make minimum wage, I was making $3.35 an hour at a supermarket in 1984. So why the hell stay home? I'll join the Army. I mean, listen, my mom had no idea I was joining the Army. My dad signed the papers and I left, and she's like, there's that Army guy's here to pick you up. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I got to go. Oh, that was awful for her. But, I explained to her, this is the situation you put me in. I had to get out of here. If not, who knows what I would have been. Miami in the 80s, I could have got caught up with the wrong guys. I would be dead. I would have been dead.
Gang unit.
Forget about the gang. It's the drugs. It's the drugs. Miami doesn't really have a gang problem. It's the drugs. I could have caught up with, there are guys who went to high school with me who are 6 feet under now, who got caught up in the cocaine game in the mid 80s. And I had to get out of here.
So if you were to be able to time machine yourself back, vis-a-vis Back to the Future style, where Biff steals the almanac, goes back and gives it to him, what is some advice you would give a young Hector in high school, pre-military, that you wish you knew now?
Pre-military?
Or that you wish you knew then?
I would have studied harder. Maybe gone to college, gone to college straight out of high school. That's probably what I would have done. I don't think I would have, outside of that, I don't have any remorse or any regret for the things I've done. There are instances that you go, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe, I should have, that girl from Thailand, maybe I should have checked her first. No. No. That's a huge pair of balls for a woman. No, but my point is that I don't have any of that. I don't have any remorse. Could I go back and maybe lay a couple $1,000s on the Mets to win the World Series in '86? Sure, I would have done that. But outside of that, I really don't have any regret.
So you take.
I have some regrets. I'm sorry, I have some regrets, but they're like, should have dated her, should have not been with her.
Simple stuff.
Should have probably not bought the Renault and bought a Honda. That kind of shit. But outside of that,
Renault. Oh my God, you had a Renault?
course, I had a because I wanted to be different, so I bought a Renault. And then
Oh God.
now you're like, who fixes French cars? Anybody here fix a French car? No, fuck it.
I wonder if Shahan knows that you had a Renault.
Oh, but I had a nice Renault. Now wait a minute. I had a very. You can Google it when you want. I had a 1987 Renault GTA. It looked like a poor man's 2003 BMW. I love that car, but every time it broke down, I only could go to one guy. He's the only guy who fixed. It's like the first guy who had a Saab here. They realized. Now Saabs are very cool, but back in the late 80s, you had a Saab and it wasn't under warranty. You were getting banged up. You're getting banged up on the repair.
So you take the stance that I do with kind of my life, in the sense of, when people ask me, do you regret XYZ in your life? Like, for instance, I have 2 DUIs. I literally, I have no problem talking about this now, but I mean, I drove through a garage when I was 21.
That's hard. That's hard to hide.
No, it is very hard to hide. And fortunately, I had the Ford Focus, which is a very safe car, not a fast car by any means, and I walked away fine and clean. But when people ask me, do you have any regrets for this, that, and I typically tell them the only regret in life that I ever had was smoking cigarettes. And any choice I made me into the person that I am today. And good, bad, or indifferent at the time, regardless of the trouble, it was a lesson that maybe I needed to learn. And it wasn't until I'm 37. It wasn't until my mid-20s where I actually accepted that my decisions have made me into who I am, and I like me. And therefore, if I regret something, that might have been a butterfly effect that changed my whole life. My second DUI was in Wisconsin, and I got a job at a grocery store after that because I couldn't really drive and the grocery store was closed. That's where I met my wife. So when people say, do you regret your second one? Well, no, because I met my wife because of it.
Well, sure, you had a tipping point, that bad thing that led to a good thing. I get it. I mean, listen, regret, sure. That proctologist, I should have got a guy with smaller hands. You have these.
Jesus.
You have these. Yeah, you have these moments. You have these. You have these moments. But listen, at the end of the day, if you're okay with you, then you're fine. And I have this talk with Jack all the time, because when I first met Jack Tarano, I'm going to make you a people person. No, you're not. You're going to try. And only to the level that I'm going to allow it. And at the end of the day, because he's a man of the people. Eric is a man of the people.
Sure.
Junior's a junior of the people. I'm not a man of the people. I'm a man of my people. When they released me into the wild a few years ago to start doing, to start traveling and doing events, it was mostly at shops that I know that I would do well, because the clientele, the owner was like me, or the owner, I dug the owner. I like the clientele there, and that's there are some guys that I could never do. There are some places I could never do events because the crowd is not conducive to my shtick. Everybody has a shtick. Look, Eric is an incredible storyteller. Eric is just the card tricks and the stories, and he's funny. And Jack's the same thing. Jack's the big personality that sits on the couch, and he can tell you stories. Richie's got a shtick. Richie Otero, who does our major accounts. The guys who love Richie love Richie. And Junior, when he gets out, because Junior now is he's a stockbroker and a part-time young philanthropist. He has his shtick too. He's a good, charming kid, and very he's very serviceable. I don't know if that's the right word in English. He's very he's very charming. Not me. I'm kind of an ass, and and I'm kind of surly. But if it's a place I like, or people I like, I'm great with them. And Eric will call and say, "How did that event go?" And they went, "Oh, Hector was great." Really? This Hector was good? Yeah, he was good. He had a great time. We did this, we did that. I am ad hoc on how it works out. Listen, one of the greatest things that our company does And I can't walk around shirtless like Mike because that's just not a good look for me. Unless I can, and it's not really a good look for him. I'm just going to go ahead and tell him that now. I mean, between shirtless Mike and pizza Mike, I don't know what's going on there, but we could start a Manzier company if you want. We start working the bro. One of the things that we do that really helped our company was this Lazona Palooza. The Lazona Palooza conceptually is a wonderful thing. It brings the people who share our, the ones who, and I don't want to call them influencers because they're not, but they're people who smoke our cigars and are in the Lazona page and promote our cigars. They're ambassadors without portfolio. I mean, they're just fantastic for us. And it comes to, and Eric puts on a great show, and Junior helped, they prep this place, and Jackson is element because he's shaking hands and patting backs, and I want to die. I want to kill myself. I'm in my office because there's so many, I'm overwhelmed by the amount of people. And you know what the weirdest thing is? That they, and this is something that I come to realize maybe a year before last. These people want to talk to me. I don't know why, but they want to talk to me. So, and they want 5 minutes with me. And I give them the 5 minutes, and they come in and we shoot the shit. And I go into my old humidor and I pull out, here, this is the old protocol. This is the protocol before it became protocol with our test band. Here, have a smoke. And they love that. So I've got my niche as well. But it's hard for me, man. I mean, it's hard for me. It's so many people. It's so, it's overwhelming, and that they don't want the party to end. And it's 12 o'clock, and I'm looking at my clock. I'm like, we're going to start throwing motherfuckers out of here, right? I mean, listen, you don't got to go home, but you got to get the fuck out of here. I mean, but so much so that there are people who make their airline reservations months in advance to come to us. And then the event ends on Saturday night, and Sunday, Eric, I had to go to the warehouse. I got 40 people. But did they not see the dates ended on Saturday? But you can't. These are our people. These are the ones who promote our brand. This is the one who smoked our stuff. A lot of these guys are the alpha dogs in their shops. And when a guy comes in, hey, what should I try? You should really try that Neo Espinosa. And that's how we've gotten here. Listen, I want to tell you that that it was just ordained that we were going to be here. We got here with a lot of help, a lot of internal help. Eric has put together a good team. He trusts his team. He has he has guys who have his back. Plus, he has and this is the thing that drives me nuts. But it's worked for our company. What kind of car do you drive, Ryan? Or are you still under DUI? Are you still?
Oh my gosh, no DUI. My second DUI was I was 25.
All right. So what do you drive now?
I drive actually. So I bought a Kia Optima EX Turbo. I sold that for my wife to be able to have the Subaru Outback because we live in Colorado. Everybody in Colorado drives a Subaru. Yes. I specifically drive a Mazda 3 i2.
Okay. So if you woke up tomorrow and there was a problem with your Mazda, you couldn't call the guys at Mazda and and say, hey bro, listen man, I bought the Mazda, can you put in some, can you throw in some, you don't have that kind of access in our industry. And it was hard for me at first to get it because I don't come from retail, I don't come from the public sector. But Eric he goes, bro, these are the guys you got, guys call him directly. Customers call him directly. And you know why customers? Because when we were small, that personal touch helped get this going. It was hard for me. I'm not going to lie to you. It's hard for me I was very stubborn about it, but those people who, those are the people who did it. These ambassadors without portfolio, the brand, the store owners, they reach out, and whether it's a problem or just, they want to place an order, they go direct to him. And you know what? That's how our company started, bro. And, and I mean, that's part of our charm. That's part of the charm.
No, and thank you, Kevin, for that. But I loved my EX Turbo. It was a sleeper car. But so I know you say you're not a people person, but you're very, very good at an interview. I'm having you're throwing out some one-liners here that are just killing me.
No, look, listen, Ryan, I want to tell you, I'm a funny motherfucker. I don't want you to think I'm not. But you're there, I'm here, I'm in my cheeky hut, I got my cigar, and if you get a little if I start getting a little tired, oh my God, my internet went down and I lost you. You know, that works for me.
So let me ask you then, what was it like for you when Espinosa hit that CA list for the first time, and now you are traveling around as well? What was that like in the beginning, and how has that kind of changed for you now?
Well, it was, like I said, it was very humbling, but we picked, and I give Eric credit. Eric has told me, bro, you've been here since day one. You can do whatever the fuck you want, because I'm one of the and the way I look at it and the way he's talked about it, if you look at it, if Espinosa's a building, I'm one of the foundation rocks of that building. And in 10 years, if something were to happen to me, God knock on wood, it doesn't, but if something were to happen to befall me, and Espinosa is still doing great, and they have a new guy in my position, and he sits here and he does an interview and he talks about Espinosa, I want him to remember that the particular rock that he is leaning on was placed there by me with great care and great love for this company. So he always made sure that he put us in good positions. You know, he wasn't going to send me to a shop that doesn't carry Espinosa. I was going to do events at shops that are big supporters of us, for the brand, or the shop owners are big supporter of us. And that was the first couple of years when it worked really well. Now I take a trip, and I'm meeting, in the last 2 years, and I've been taking trips with Big Jack a couple of times. You go into these shops, they meet the salesperson, and then they meet the national sales manager. At times they meet the brand owner, but then you have these shops that want to talk to the guy who put it together. Hey, how did you come up with this? What? And that's where I really do the best.
So
it was humbling at first. Now I'm very comfortable in it. Very comfortable. So much so that I tell people I'm a big deal. No, I'm kidding. I don't actually do that, but.
So you do enjoy that aspect of traveling around to the shops and just shooting the shit. So when you walked into a shop, that first couple of times, did you kind of incognito, kind of stroll in and see what people are smoking?
No, if I'm doing visits with our rep or our broker, I expect him to give me the lowdown when we walk in. Hey, this is the big Espinosa shop. They know who you are. Don't worry about it. Or he'll say, hey, look, this is a shop we're trying to get in. So when I get there, after he does his spiel, because I always let the broker, I'm not a salesman. If it was up to me to be a salesman, we would be out of gas. But we would. You don't like the fucking cigar? Don't buy it. I mean, that's a pretty. But the salesman, I go on him. He says, hey, we're trying to get in this shop. We're gonna talk to him, and then as he breaks the ice and he does his thing, I can interject, what we've done, what we've done with this, what we're doing with this, our, what the tobacco is, what our process. I'm there to assist. I'm there to assist them when it's an event where they're expecting me to, like at Caravan. I walked into Caravan, and the only thing they didn't do was throw virgins at my feet. I mean, it was that kind of like, here. I stood there and I said, bring me the red-haired one. She amuses me. It wasn't like that. But they love me. I mean, people who only know me on Facebook were hugging me, and these guys know. They follow me on the interviews. They follow me on the shows I do. And a couple of guys brought me like memorabilia. Hey, man, I know you're a Mets fan. Here, got you. I mean, you're super touched. How can you not be? How can you not be super touched by that? Guys who really give a shit who I am, which is weird. Because I don't really care a shit who I am sometimes. I'm like, but you have to be a little. It's very humbling.
It is, and in fact, one of the first times that I went to an event, and somebody walked up to me and they were like, "Oh, I watch your show." I was like, "Wow, really? Oh my god!" Like I didn't even know how to respond to that.
Oh, I got is props. Is Kevin's cigar props?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Kevin's on.
I've only been big dicked once in all the times I've gone to the event, and he big dicked me once, and I reminded him, and he didn't remember, but then he goes, "Oh yeah." So I'm at Abe's event 4 years ago. I think he was just getting his feet wet. He was starting out his thing, and I'm at the booth, and I'm pretty recognizable. I'm not like I'm the smallest guy in the room either. I've got some girth to me, And, people walk, oh, yeah, you're Heck, nice to meet you. And then this guy walks up, Kevin walks up, and he looks at me and he goes, was that Jack Tarano standing next to you? I said, yeah. He goes, I love him, man. I'd love to get him on my show. I said, oh, okay. Well, come back. He just went to the bathroom. Back in 5 minutes. By the way, I'm Hector Alfonso. I'm the blender. He goes, yeah, that's cool. But can I get Jack on it? I'm like, this motherfucker here. So then I made the mistake of telling Jack that story, and then Jack just went to town with it. So when Kevin asked me last year to be on the show, I almost told him no, because he big dicked me. Big dicked me at Abe's event. But it was all good. I mean, it's a funny story, but is that Jack Tarano? Man, fuck Jack Tarano. Yeah, look, he's bringing this up again. It's true. But is it a true story though? Ask him if it's a true story. He's got to admit it's a true story. And then here's the funny thing. I'm sitting next to Jack. We're working the booth together. And then like 2 booths over is Risty. And Risty's dressed like he just walked out of like the Copacabana. He's wearing like a jumpsuit with like Elvis glasses. It was ridiculous. It was a ridiculously good time at that event. That it was the I want to say it was two Great Smokes ago, or maybe 3 Great Smokes ago.
So as you're getting more well known, what was kind of one of the weirdest experiences where if it happened to you where you were just randomly talking to somebody that it finally clicked who the hell you were to that person?
No, you know what? I luckily I haven't had that. I really haven't. I haven't had it. I've had some weird interactions. Like, you want to do some blow? No, I don't want to do any blow. Does it look like like I do a lot of blow to you? Or, you like my sister? Yeah. You want her? No, I don't want your sister. What kind of shit is this? Why are we doing events here in the Rust Belt? No, seriously. I've had some weird interactions because unfortunately, there are people who just are socially awkward. I'm not saying people who are on the spectrum, just people who just sometimes they're a little socially awkward, and even sometimes they're such cigar fan people, and I don't want to call them fanboys. I think that's a derogatory term. They're such fans of your brand that you're there, and they're whether it's Jack or myself, and they're just overwhelmed, and I get it. I'm very happy to be here. I'm glad you like our cigar. I'll take a picture. You want me to sign your box? Really? Okay, I'll sign your box. Listen, that's awesome. Great. I'm glad you like it. There's 2 people behind you. You gotta shake and move along. It's like a buffet. Like the fat guy said, when you're at the buffet, grab and go. You got your signature. You got your hug. All right. Move along. There's other people behind you. I don't want to leave anybody out. So I've had that a little bit, but outside of that, everybody's been the majority. 99% have been wonderful. I mean, the retailers are just so happy to have you. I do the Northwest. I do a little Hacktoberfest run through the Northwest, and they seem to be so happy to have you there. Not me. I mean, they're happy to have anybody up there because it is far as fuck. I mean, Miami to Seattle is the longest flight in the contiguous United States. So you fly up, you fly up there. It's like that's like, you got like pilgrims are still on the way there. I mean, it's that fucking far, and they're happy to have you. So they pull out all the stops. I mean, and how can you not be thankful? I'm still when we have an event. When we have an event, and it's over the top. I sit there in the car and go, man, I can't believe we had 100 people here. Who the fuck? I don't know 100 people. I can't name 100 people. And you got 100 people here who wanted to, they wanted to smoke our cigar, and they wanted to talk, and they wanted to hear a story, and they wanted, how can you not be humbled by that?
Oh no, for sure. Very humbled by it. And in some cases, it can almost kind of take your breath away to the extent that people show up when, especially in the beginning, when you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that this many people enjoyed our stuff to this level. That's fantastic. I want to touch on here really quick on a theme that I have been taking with my show for the last year, and that is on mentors. Okay. Now, you've had an extensive career in the military, law enforcement, and now in the cigar industry. What is your take on either having a mentor or being a mentor? And do you think that it's a good thing to look at somebody as either a mentor or be a mentor?
I've had several mentors throughout my life. Uh, when I was in the Army, I worked for a guy named John Wood that I've never been able to find, and I pride myself on finding people. But a guy named John Wood is hard to find. I mean, it's a very basic thing. He was my sergeant, and he's the guy who kind of told me this is how we do things. You know, it's not about being piss and vinegar. You got to think before you act. He was my first mentor in the Army, and I'm assuming he was already in his 40s when I was 18. So if he's alive, he's going to be in his mid 80s. And I never got a chance to reconnect with John. Sergeant Wood, who in my mind he's still always going to be Sergeant Wood. In the department, I had several guys that I worked for that were instrumental in kind of teaching you where there's the out of bounds on things, and then there's the fringe. How to try to work. The important thing is to work and not get in trouble. Do your job, be good at your job, and kind of stay the course. Don't get caught up in the fringe, out in the boundary where you just do your job. This is not we're not in elementary school where you pick sides. You just do your job. I had a guy named Dennis Morales who was kind of I don't want to say my godfather, but he mentored me along, and this is what you want to. This is how you want to do things. This is how I want to approach things. It's big picture, which is hard when you're a young cat. When you're 27 years old, 30 years old, big picture doesn't mean shit to you.
No, it's hard.
you think you've got another 30 years, but those 30 years sneak up on you like so fast that it's ridiculous. I worked for a guy named Aaron Campbell, who was also a guy who I respected a lot, and guys that you could pick up the phone and call them, and hey, look, I'm having this problem. I'm working for this guy now. Yeah, look, this is how you approach that. You do this, you do that, because there are a lot of politics, and large police departments carry a lot of political. There's always some political fallout and ramifications on where you've sided. Always play the middle. Don't fence it. You have to take a stand, but you got to know who you're siding with. And I worked for a guy named Matt Boyd, same thing, and he was funny because he said the weirdest shit. His idioms were like out of this world. He'd tell you, you're gonna be sitting on the railroad tracks and get hit by a plane, and you're sitting there, you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? But he would say shit like that just that made you think. You got to know the players, Fonzo. You got to know the players. And you learn from that. And then in this industry, I want to say that Eric's been a mentor, but I just don't think he can handle that right now because, he'd have no time for me with his new, with everything he's doing, the new Eric. But in all seriousness, I wouldn't be where I am today had he not reached out to me. Did you ever watch Night Court, the original Night Court?
Oh my gosh, I loved watching reruns of that.
So there was an episode where John Larroquette, the Dan Fielding, whatever his character's name was, he tells Judge Stone, he goes, you were 125th on the list to make judge. How did you make judge? How did you become a judge? And he says, I was home when that phone rang. I answered the phone when they called me. What if I did not answer the phone when Eric called me that day? It's one of those things. You talk about how this happened because of that. So, my loyalty is to him, to this company. I have no idea. I would never be in this industry without him. He's let me, he did mentor me in a lot of the stuff that really is not part of my daily thing, the sales stuff and how to deal with customers. That's not really what I ended up doing. But at the beginning, we were only three of us. So, you had to field calls and you had to do everything. You had to be a jack of all trades. But he's really, he was really instrumental in me learning what the cigar industry was on this side. And then, as he gave me the leeway to develop the other set of skills and, and these other responsibilities, I owe it to him. Listen, a lot of guys, this is an industry where there's a lot of movement. I can tell you, I've been with him 11 years. There's not a lot of guys who've been with the same company who stay in the industry who were with the same company for that amount of time. Now, I know I have a specific job task and skill, but I like where I'm at. And I like the fact that we started it with nothing. We started with nothing but word of mouth and the prestige that he had and the experience that he had and the name recognition that he brought to the company. And look where we are now. So, he is responsible for my success and giving me the chance to just do your thing. Do your thing, and you've reached that place when you're not micromanaged, and they're not looking over your shoulder. He has complete confidence and faith in what I'm doing and what I'm and what we're about, because we're all about Espinosa. We're all about making this a better company. We're all about making good cigars and having people, when they talk of our brand, always talk about it in a positive light. That's what we're about.
So, as we kind of wrap up here, I want to throw some lightning round questions at you. First off, I am very curious. Now, I have, over the last several weeks, have gotten into pipes.
I see that.
Tobacco. I didn't have enough time to light up another cigar, and I figure I just would pack a pipe, continue to smoke. Are you somebody? Are you somebody that enjoys all forms of tobacco, or are you just cigars?
I just do cigars. I don't have the patience for pipe. I think pipe requires an inordinate amount of self control and discipline to tap, keep it clean. I don't do that. I'm the kind of guy that if I want drive through and there's 2 cars at McDonald's, I'll go to the next one. I don't have that patience. I know it's not in me. And I know pipes are a lifestyle as much as cigars are a lifestyle. Guys who are, I've heard guys talk about their pipes like they're talking about their women. I mean, they're into their pipes, and it's never really been a thing for me. I love the smell of pipe tobacco. I mean, if you don't like the smell of pipe tobacco, what's wrong with you? I mean, it's
fantastic.
We got a chance as a company to work with Burley. We were one of the first companies to work with Burley in the cigar. It wasn't. Yeah, we did a cigar for Cornelius and Anthony, a company that's no longer around. That he grew Burley. He grew Burley for this cigarette operation. So he would send the Burley to get processed in the Dominican, and then he sent some Burley to Nicaragua, and he wanted to incorporate Burley into a cigar. And it wasn't the same as the Stillwell series where there's Burley. It's it's not infused. That's not the way, but it's part of the blend. We used it as binder. So you can imagine these big things of Burley get there, and the guy who runs the factory is from Cuba. He left Cuba in the 2000s. So he's looking at that going, I can make 4 cigars out of that. I mean, that's just because they know how to maximize, they know how to maximize what they get. So we made several blends with that Burley binder, and I wanted to use it as wrapper. It just in the state it was in, its color stained got very ugly when it got wet. So we use it as binder, and it's very smoky, and it has it has a nice aroma, and it burns well. And we use that, and then we had some Burley left over that I think we're about 3 months into a pilon. We're going to try to see what we can do with that if we can get it to the right color for wrapper, and maybe do a little something special.
Really? So you guys are going to potentially look at bringing in another cigar pipe tobacco?
Well, no, I don't think I think we would just kind of rehash what we did earlier, and we never really classified it as a cigar with pipe tobacco. We didn't tell them until we waited a year before we told people that it was Burley, but but processed for tobacco. It wasn't it wasn't strips of Burley. It was full leaf, and you looked at it and you go, oh, that's cut for binder. Yeah, it's cut to be used as a binder, cut in half because it's damn long. So we incorporated it as part of the binder, not in the filler.
Yeah, my ADD loves the ritual of pipes. I'm just going to be honest.
Oh, I can. And look, he wanted us to do something with Cavendish, but the smell of Cavendish, it was just too. There was just no way there's no way we could have done anything at that time. I think, and things progress, and brands progress, and I think it was the right time when Steve launched that last year.
Now, for anybody watching that doesn't know what Cavendish is a not a tobacco. It is a process of curing inside of a barrel for a year and then open it up. And you could have a Virginia Cavendish, you could have a Burley. Any tobacco can be a Cavendish once put through this process. So do you still have some of those laying around?
I do. I have everything.
Oh, dude, how can I get my hand on one or two?
Well, let me see when I get back to the office tomorrow, what I have lying around, and maybe if they're the right humidity, if not, because they've been sitting in my humidor for years. Cornelius and Anthony went out of business like before COVID, so I mean, not that they went out of business, they just sold. He stopped operations because he sold the cigarette branch of his company for a substantial amount of money. And why would he want to stay in the cigar industry when he can go live his best life?
Totally. Well, whatever I can do to get my hands on one, one or two, or whatever, I would love that.
I'll take care of that.
Now, to get into my lightning round questions to kind of wrap up the interview that I ask everybody, what is your favorite size cigar?
All right, I think we talked about it earlier.
646, 648.
648, 6.5 or 6x48.
What is your favorite cut?
I don't cut. I use teeth.
If you had to use a cutter,
I would just do it straight across. If I had to use a cutter, I would just nip it across the top.
What is your favorite pairing?
Wow, that's a good question. I'm a little awkward. I'm a little weird in the sense that when I go to Nicaragua, I don't really drink unless I'm at somebody's house and they offer me an outstanding whiskey or something like that, or a rum. But personally, I like to drink porters and stouts with my beer, with my cigars. I like to pair them with my cigars.
Okay, so a little bit more on the stout beer side.
I'm a more of a porter guy. I like Christmas lagers, I like stuff that has a lot of the spice in it. That Christmassy spice kind of stuff. I like Trappist ales. I like those kind of things.
What is your favorite cigar you have ever blended, regardless if it's still on the market or not?
Favorite? It's like asking me which one of my kids is my favorite. Well,
I know, right?
That's easy. I know which one that is. I think. Fuck. I want to tell you that I'm a. How about if I tell you the one I'm proudest of?
Yeah,
I think sure. We talked about that as crema because I don't smoke a lot of Connecticut, and it seems to do real well, and people really like it. So that's the one that I kind of like, throw my shoulders back a little bit and go, yeah, how you like that? But the one I like the most, my favorite was we do a series called The Six Provinces, where the first six provinces, the LHB, was my favorite cigar of all the cigars that we've ever blended. That's my favorite.
What is your first cigar, if you remember it, that you ever had that launched you into cigars?
Well, when I was in the Army, I smoked. We go to the PX and buy Have a Tampas and Have a Nugget and shit like that. My first cigar that really, the first cigar that I stopped and went, damn, I like this. I don't think they make that anymore. It was called the Don Tomas International No. 9. It was made. It was Miami Cigar was the company at the time that sold. They had the Don Tomas and Don Lino, and I loved that cigar. Then those cigars went away, and I smoked a lot of the original Glorias. And and then he sold, and I moved on to Padron, and Padron No. 9 Natural is my celebratory. When I want a cigar just for me, that I want to try something, that's the cigar I like. But that's it's few and far between. I mean, I smoke. I try to smoke new stuff. But when I want, like when I retired, I smoked. A couple of guys bought me some Padron 50s, which I thought was very nice. I was just gifted one when I went to see Harrisburg Beer and Wine. I was gifted a 50-year Padron. I mean, how do you say no to these guys? You're very touched, and you smoke them because they know.
Well, you brought up Have a Tampa, and around here somewhere, I have an original Have a Tampa cigar box that my dad had when my granddad passed, and he had took it home. My dad had, or my granddad, no, my dad had a second cousin who married a Latino man, and actually a Cuban guy, and he rolled at Have a Tampa. So my dad actually sent me the Have a Tampa box. It was the original cardboard boxes.
That's cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
And I have it laying around here somewhere. So it's interesting that you said that.
Well, I mean, that's what they sold at the PX. They sold Cuban sandwiches, and they sold the Cuban sandwiches, the mixed fill, and a lot of those machine made, the Phillies blunts and stuff like that. It was just, when I started smoking before I joined the Army. My brother's godfather smoked the cafeteros, the cigars you would buy at a Cuban bakery. You paid 75 for 75 cents. You get a double Corona for 75 cents. But it was this big. It's like the John Holmes cigar. It was huge. It was one of those fucking cigars. So, but I dug it. Now, I'm thinking. I told you LHB. LHB we don't make that anymore. So I guess of the cigars that's my favorite that is still in production is the Laranja Oscuro. I like the Oscuro a lot. I like that cigar a lot.
I like it as well. The Azulejo. Thank you for explaining to me how to pronounce that, because I'm the worst about pronouncing anything.
Listen, it's we'd like to be able to, we try to give them, names that name it's part of a whole motif with the whole Brazilian thing. Look, we'd like to call them all Fred, because everybody can say Fred, but you just can't, you just can't call them Fred, or Joe or whatever.
So what is your favorite rapper? And you can give me musician, or you can and cigar wrapper. Part 2 to that question is, what is a wrapper that you would love to work with but haven't quite either had the opportunity or figured out a great blend?
All right, well, I'll tell you that and I said this earlier, we're kind of synonymous with Habano. Eric's a big fan of Habano. The lighter the better. I've grown a little tired of Habano. It's I'll smoke a dark Habano. I'll smoke but those lighter rosados, I'm not a huge fan of those. There are a couple of wrappers that I really like a lot, and you can tell because they're part of our portfolio. I like Mexican San Andreas. I like broadleaf, obviously. Oscuro is Matafina. It's the only Matafina that we make. We made and they're all different. And I like them all. But we haven't really done anything new with that wrapper. We did a Warzone, which was a collaboration that we did with General, and that was Cameroon, which is what I'm smoking now. The tobacco that I want to work with the most is Arapiraca.
Okay.
I've had some of my friends make really good cigars with Arapiraca, and I want to, but of course, it's having to make the right blend, get it done, and then get it past the approval process. Because, oh, bro, another dark wrapper, listen, but the argument will be, listen, you have to make cigars for the masses. And Arapiraca is the one wrapper I really want to work with. I've done Sumatra and dark Sumatra and light Sumatra and all this stuff, but that's the one I really want to work with.
So before I get to my next question, I just wanted to show you this.
Oh, look at that. How cool is that, huh?
So this is an original, obviously, 50 count cigar box.
Look at that. That is
from
so cool.
Have a Tampa. And that's actually in pretty good condition.
That's in great 3 for 23 cents. That's in wonderful condition.
I know, right? Isn't that great?
Oh, and by the way, the other favorite rapper was DMX. In case you want to know.
Okay. Yeah,
I can be a little gangster. I can be a little gangster.
And one thing I'm really curious about is, what is one time where what is a cigar that you outweighed Eric in its release or blend. And what I mean by that is you were like, sit down, trust me, it's going to work.
Fuck. Start the clock. I got to tell you, I don't think that's happened. I don't think that's happened. Now, we've had questions about sizes. That was more. But listen, at the end of the day, everything that we get done has to get the seal of approval. So we haven't been. There hasn't been an instance where he said, "All right, this is on you if it fails." We haven't had that instance. He can recognize, if he doesn't like it, but enough guys around him like it, he knows that we're going to go forward with that project. Size, the warhead that we did last year, that was the 2022 release. There was, and I am not an "I told you so" guy. However, I will say I informed you thusly. So when we ran out of that 6x60, I told them, I informed you thusly that this 6x60 would smell. But that's a size issue. But wrapper, no, we haven't had that, and I don't think we've ever had a cigar either that we haven't had a cigar that he didn't at least warm up to in some instance to release. So yeah,
you've not had like a my father moment where you tried to sneak a cigar past and it came across his desk. That's essentially the story of where the My Father blend started. It came across his desk. He was like, "What the hell is this?"
Wait a minute. No. Listen, it's easier to beg. It's easier to get forgiveness than permission. I'm a huge believer in that. But when we're going to make a new cigar or something, that's an expense. And even to this day, it's hard for me to smoke anything with a band on it because I remember how we started, and we didn't have product, for Christ's sakes, so it was hard for me to smoke the banded stuff. I would only smoke test blends and bundles. So, kind of sneaking something through, that's just, it's not good business. I would never do that. But I would never do that. But
what's the one cigar you blended that's shocked Eric that he enjoyed it?
I want to say last year's 10th anniversary. Last year's 10th anniversary cigar. I worked with the tobacco that I'd never used before. We had a blend with Belo de Oro in it, and he really came back and he goes, "Man, this is really good." But when things are going good, you can't complain. So 10th anniversary comes out, Warhead comes out, the Guy Fieri stuff comes out, and some of that stuff gets caught up in the wash. The Guy Fieri cigars booming and the Warhead was booming. The 10 had some movement, but it's weird. That's why we may have made a mistake last year releasing 5 at the show, but the 5 cigars we released at the show, we had to release them. It was the 10th anniversary of La Zona. It was the 10th anniversary of the company. The 6 provinces that we do every year, the Warhead that we do every year. And I can't remember which of the 5th cigar. Oh, the Chef Special, which was a limited that we did for Guy Fieri. We had so many, but I think I'll tell you a funny story. He comes to my desk one day and goes, "Give me something to smoke." So I pulled out a 6.5 by 48 box pressed Laranja, and I just handed it to him. And he literally goes, "What's this?" I go, "Oh, just try it." Well, he comes back, "Bro, this is really good. What is this?" I go, "It's the Laranja for next year at the show. We're going to box press it." He goes, "All right." I mean, listen, what I've learned in my years with him, there are guys who can take meetings and you can talk about concepts, but he's a visual guy. He wants to see it. So I've learned that it's just easier to get the samples made and then present them. And instead of talking about how we want the box to look, have a mock-up or have a renderer so he can see it, because that's the only way you're going to get him behind it. So that happened with Laranja, that happened with Oscuro. It was not about let's work on this and what do you think. No, the cigar's made and then sit down and try this. That's the way I've learned that it works best for me. And there's no questions because what's it going to taste like? No, you're tasting it right here. This is what it's going to be. and this is the size that we want to do, and if we're going to do different iterations, it'll be this, this, and that. It's very hands on, and I think there are a lot of guys who thrive like that. He does very well with it.
So, if were you just a yes or no to this, were you at all nervous with seeing celebrities releasing cigars to do something with Guy Fieri? And then a part two to that, because he's a chef and his palate is super refined, was that fun and enjoyable to work with a guy that can taste things like that?
I know there have been several celebrity cigar collaborations, and I was a little worried, of course, but we have royalty in the industry. You know that there's royalty in our cigar industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, guys who've been 20 years and they're renowned, and a lot of them are good guys. You know, they have stature, but they're only well known to the industry. The same thing applies, I think, when you do a celebrity cigar. Like I remember Coach Ditka did a cigar. Unless you were a Bears fan or a football fan, that cigar might have gotten lost on you. Same thing for a baseball player, a basketball player, a football player. But Guy Fieri transcends the cigar industry, because your wife, I'm sure your wife knows plenty about cigars because she lives with you. But let's say
she smokes them too.
And she smokes them. But
she
let's
loves
say
the crema.
Let's say your sister or your cousin is not a. Let's say you have a female family member or wife of a dear friend who doesn't smoke cigars. She might not know who those guys are if she doesn't follow that particular team sport or know that particular actor. But she knows who Guy Fieri is, and he's been good for the industry because he has really worked to bring the cigar culture into the mainstream, whether it's with his events, whether it's with his appearances, you know, wearing the knuckle sandwich shirt while he's doing his shows on TV, you know, the pictures of him with his cigar, with his first knuckle sandwich at the NBA All-Star game. You know, he has done his part. So I was not, while I was worried the first time, you know, I was worried about a cigar celebrity, but we sat down with him, and he's like years ahead. He's thinking 2 or 3 years ahead of what we're going to do. And we didn't have a cigar yet, but that was my first time meeting him. And I just, while Eric and him were shooting the shit and getting to know each other, I was just plying him with cigars. I give him a cigar, I let him smoke it. After 15, 20 minutes, I take it back. What did you think? Oh, well, yeah, I like this. You know, I like the hardiness of this. I like the spice in this, or this. I like the darkness, the complexity. Then I give him another one. No, this is too light. I don't like this. And after 2 hours, probably 2.5 hours of this, I had an idea of what direction to go for a cigar frame. And this is where we are now. I mean, and this is smack dab in the middle of COVID. I mean, you know, this was, you know, during COVID's, not maybe the beginning of the pandemic, but right in the middle of it, you know. So we were, you know, we got that with him. And listen, he's a cigar smoker. You know, he's lighting a cigar up after he lights up his other cigar. He likes to smoke. So it's not like the guy who's, you know, well, you know, he's being dainty with a cigar, doesn't really know. He wants to learn, and he's a sponge. I mean, he's heard us talk about the cigar, and you know, and he repeats back. You know, he knows what the cigar's about. He knows how to explain what it tastes. I mean, I'm really astounded at how quickly he's become a cigar guy. You know, he's just really he's all in, and he's all in on this brand, man. He's all in on this brand. It's a culture that he likes, and I think he could be good for our industry. He was at the Great Smoke last year, and guys would walk up to Eric and say, "Man, he is so good for our industry."
Hopefully, he'll be there this year.
I don't know what his schedule's like this year. I mean, we got him a lot last year. We had him at the Great Smoke. We did an event in Puerto Rico. We had him at Zona Palooza. We had him at the Cigar Aficionados Big Smoke, and we had him at the PCA. He did a lot. You know, he was, for a guy. And listen, you and me have problems, Ryan, but you have Ryan problems, and I have Hector problems. We don't have Guy Fieri problems. All right, we don't. His, you know, his listen. My son, who's active law enforcement, he came to the show. I asked him to come to the show. I bought him, you know, I miled him some tickets so he can come to the show, to be his body man during the show. He said, "Pop, this guy can't walk 10 steps without somebody in his face. Hey, I love your show. I want to shake your hand. I want a picture. Can you sign this?" We have no idea what that's like. We have no idea. Don't. I mean, he was trying to have a burger after he signed 400 boxes or 400 things that he signed at the show, he was just trying to have a burger. And we had to put people around him, so and it might look, why is he special? No, he's just trying to have a burger. Let the man
leave
have
him
a
alone.
burger.
Yeah.
And when he's on, bro, he's on.
Sure.
What city do you live in Colorado, Ryan?
Over at Palmer Lake.
Okay, if he's been anywhere in that area, he's going to tell you,
He
I ate it.
has.
I've been at this restaurant, and do you know this person? I don't have that kind of recognition. I mean, Eric and him they share very similar traits with that. Eric can't remember, what I told him yesterday about something else, but he'll tell you, oh, that guy? Yeah, there's a guy who goes to that shop. He just had a baby. He lost his job. He bought a. How does he remember that? It's just the recall that they have, and when he's on, he's on. Look, I like I said, I had my concerns, but they were very short lived. They maybe 2 hours after I saw that he was digging, and I gave him bad cigars. I don't want you to think I just gave him good cigars. I got a couple of dog rocks. Oh, smoke this. Oh, no, I don't like this at all. Okay, cool. Because that's the number one thing in our industry. Our guys won't tell them. You can't. It's hard for you to tell your friend that his cigar sucks. But you have to find better words. You can't say it sucks. Hey, I think you should go in this direction, or it's not quite ready. But this guy, I gave him bad cigars, and he went, no, I don't like this at all. Good. All right, at least he's being honest. I mean, I didn't take it. I knew I was giving him. I knew I was giving him a cigar that wasn't up to snuff. But
he passed the Hector test.
He passed the sniff test, and he passed it with Eric, because when he lit a cigar with Eric for the first time, Eric offered him a cutter, and he goes, I don't use cutters. And Eric's like, my man. He was impressed by the fact that he doesn't use a cutter.
Well, so last question I have for you to end the show here is a two-parter.
We only did 2 hours?
Yeah, I know, right? I know, right? This has been an absolutely fantastic time for me. So last question.
I'm a funny guy. I told you. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Ryan.
You gave me some one-liners that I've never heard of before. It was your Army one-liner. It was absolutely fantastic. But two-part question. If you're a religious guy, regardless of what your religion is, what would you like your creator to say to you in the end? And part two to that is, when you're long gone and retired, or even off this planet, off this earth, what would you like the cigar industry to remember you as?
All right, I'm going to start with the second part first, if I can.
Sure.
I was on a plane last year sometime. I was flying back from somewhere, and Pedro, Pedro from True State?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Pedro was on the same plane as me. And I remember telling Jack, I go, had something happened to that plane and that plane would have gone down, the story would have been Pedro Gomez from True State perishes in airline. Also on that plane was Hector Alfonso. That was my worry. I wouldn't give a shit that I dropped dead, So that's why I'm like, fuck. What would I want my creator or the person I believe in to tell me? I think you did a good job. It'd be nice for him to be told, hey, you did the best. You did good. Because listen, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. I have 1,000 things that are absolutely wrong with me. However, the one thing that I'm really proud of is that I think I'm an excellent father. I'm a good dad. I'm a good dad till this day. I mean, I earned some brownie points. 20 years ago, we adopted twin girls. I have my daughters are adopted from Russia. I mean, they were abandoned and malnourished and small and sickly, and we adopted them, and it's the best thing. It's the best bonus points I could ever accumulate in this lifetime. I've tried to be a good son. It's hard because my parents are a pain in the ass. I've tried to be a good coworker. I've tried to be a good friend. I don't have a huge circle, but the guys who are in my circle are my guys. And if you're my guy, you're good. I have a son who's a policeman who's just an outstanding young man, and I'm very proud of him. So I think I did a pretty good job. Maybe when we get there, the creator's a cigar smoker, and he'll say, "Hey, I really dug. That Laranja was pretty fucking good, you know, or Crema was pretty fucking good. But, you know, it's just knowing that it was a life well lived. Having a life well lived, a life of purpose, you know, and having things you believe in, and you know, and trying to maneuver life now that I'm in my 50s, now that I'm in my late 50s. It's kind of it's all I can ask for. Listen, I'm glad I work in the cigar industry because a lot of guys retire, and guys who get out of my field, they drop dead within 5 years. You see that all the time. Guys retire for 5 years, they don't do a fucking thing, and they drop dead. I'm still busy. I'm still active. You know, and I get angry plenty at work, and I get happy at work. You know, there's a lot of emotion. You know, so I'm alive. So that's a good thing to have. You know, it's you got to have a cause, and you know, and we've got a good cause. I love what I do. I believe in the company I work with, and what else could you want, really? I mean, you know,
Absolutely. No, totally. You're 100% correct. So, well, Hector, thank you so much for joining me on the program tonight. It was an absolutely fantastic time talking with you. We've been talking with Hector Alfonso Sr. of Espinosa Cigars, the blender for Espinosa Cigars. I'll say it, the master blender for Espinosa Cigars. And Espinosa Cigars will always have a special spot with me. Eric was one of the first people that came on the show, and I fell in love with your guys' cigars before that. The robustness, the spiciness, the grab you by the balls of most of your cigars are absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much for coming on, and thank you to everybody watching the show tonight. It was a little longer show than normal, but when you're talking with a guy like Hector, it's hard
we can
to end early.
Listen, all I got to do is take a leak. We can go 2 more hours if you want. I got to take a leak, and we can go do 2 more hours. No, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Anytime I have a chance to be on a show and spread the word, talk about, you know, spread our dogma and our karma is what I'm about. So thanks for having me, Ryan. I appreciate it. I hope you had a nice viewership, and your downloads are good. And
absolutely.
And we'll talk soon, man. Thanks a lot for having me.
Stick around real quick, Hector. Thank you so much to all the sponsors: BAMF, ROCF, BAMF Cigars, ROCF Cigars, Christoph, New Air Humidors, Sagrado, McAuliffe, and what I was drinking tonight, which went really, really well, was the Axe and Oak Port Cask whiskey that they have. So thank you so much to everybody watching. Jump on over to smokin.com, buy tickets for TGS if they're still available. Espinosa will be there. They'll be doing a special cigar for TGS, which we didn't get into, and that's totally fine. But definitely keep their eye on Espinosa and all the great things that they have coming out soon. And you guys got some little tidbits of things to potentially look forward to on the show tonight this year as well. So to everybody watching, thank you so much for stopping in for yet another live show of Rocky Mountain Cigar Show. And until we see you all again, smoke what you like, smoke as often as you can. Have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.